I'm going to give an overview of what ponder.wiki is, and then in subsequent videos I'm going to show some of the more advanced features. So to begin with, to get to ponder.wiki, you just type in ponder.wiki, and it will take you to an empty canvas. On the top right-hand corner, there'll be a place to log in and log out. And here in the middle of the top, there's a place to search and create. So for instance, you could search for all the nodes that have AI, or you could create a new topic like AI is gonna be great. And then you could click here and that would create a new topic. But I'm just gonna go through an existing topic to begin with so we can see what ponder.wiki is. And I'll just close this node for a second so that we can zoom in on this and understand it. So it says short-term AI development poses a significant existential risk to humanity. And you can see that some of the terms here are defined to allow a greater level of precision to the argument. Now, when you open it, you get to see the arguments for and against this claim. This is the core claim that all of the arguments in this tree that we're going to see in a minute are going to relate to. And at first, it hides some of the weaker arguments. You can see more arguments by clicking these expand and collapse buttons down here. So I'm going to show those. And you can see that every claim can have multiple arguments for or against it. So this claim happens to have one argument for it and two arguments against it. It could have 1,000 arguments for and against the claim. Anyone who comes here can create an argument for and against it. And they'll show in the initial screen when they get a high enough score, which we'll go into in a later video. So it's important to note that in these boxes here are the titles of the argument. This is not the actual content of the argument. To make that entirely clear, we put argument title in parentheses here, just to remind people that this is only the title. To see the actual argument, you have to click this little plus button. And then you see the actual elements of the argument. This argument has 3 claims that together should prove the core claim that the topic claim that the whole thing is about. So the first claim is that there is a significant chance that short-term AI development will produce an artificial intelligence that has existential power over humanity that could engage in a course of action that ends human existence. The second claim is that there's a significant chance that a near-term AI would prefer a course of action that would lead to human extinction. And then the third claim just ties this all together to say, if there's a significant chance of an AI having the power to end humanity, and there's a significant chance that the AI would want to end humanity, then short-term AI development poses a significant existential risk to humanity. Now, the idea of these claims of an argument is that they should always prove the claim that they're for or against, or in the case of an argument that's against, it should prove the claim to be false. Each claim, in turn, can have arguments for and against it. And each of those arguments for and against them will, in turn, have more claims. These are just the titles, remember. The result is that you can have a very detailed discussion where the computer is doing a lot of the bookkeeping to keep track of the flow of the logic and to help people remember how the whole argument fits together. This becomes really helpful as arguments become more complex. As people go deeper and deeper into a discussion, and there's more and more nodes, it becomes really helpful to have the computer keeping track of what the shape of the argument is, what is the exact logical relationships between all the different pieces. This is just a tiny piece of this argument or this discussion about this core claim of whether short-term AI development poses a significant existential risk to humanity. And you can see that even though I haven't opened up most of these nodes, it's already becoming fairly complex. One thing that the computer can do is help people keep track of the strength of the various arguments that have been entered into the system so far. Now, obviously, it can't tell you the truth of the arguments because it only can draw from the arguments that have been entered into the system so far in order to evaluate the strength of the arguments, but it can give you a rough estimation of how strong the arguments are. So we can go looking as an example right here. We have a very strong for argument here and two pretty weak against arguments for this central claim. Taken all together, that gives the claim a strong rating. And then you can look further and say, I wonder why this argument has a strong rating. A rating of 61 is actually a pretty strong argument. So to see why an argument has a strong rating, you can look at the claims that make up the argument. If the claims that make up the argument are considered strong, and those claims prove the target claim, then the argument will be strong. So to look at why these claims have strong arguments, you can in turn look at the arguments for those claims. If they have arguments that are strong for them, then those claims will be considered to be stronger. And you can keep following the path of the logic down to the lowest level claims. Now these lowest level claims, you notice, don't have any arguments for or against them. So their strength is calculated based on the average ratings. Now, we don't believe that you can vote on truth. Truth is independent of people's opinions. So the average is only a placeholder here until people add arguments for and against these claims. Eventually, you may get down to claims that no one really has good arguments for and against, in which case it's just really a question of intuition. And so you might have a claim, for instance, this one, which hovers around 62, pretty close to 50, right? Indicating that there is a fair degree of disagreement about the claim. Some people are voting it high, some people are voting it low. You can see there's only been 2 votes on this. On the other hand, a claim like this, which has a high score and no arguments for and against it, indicates that most of the people who are coming and voting on this claim agree about that. And then also, you could have claims that have low scores, which would mean there's also a fair degree of consensus that the claim is false. Now, it's easy if someone disagrees with the consensus to create an argument by simply pushing on that button, and you can create an argument for or against. In this case, let's say we want to create an argument against because we disagree with the claim's high score. So we want to sort of prove that that's an unjustified high score. So we could say something like this: AI development has been slow. You could say, well, actually, all the recent examples of breakthroughs were prototyped decades ago. I mean, actually, I guess were first prototyped decades ago. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily a good argument. I'm just giving an example of how one could enter an argument. And then you could say something like, if all the recent examples of breakthroughs were first prototyped decades ago, then it is not the case that there are examples of, there are recent examples of going from prototype to breakthrough in the space of a couple years, something like that. And then I think this is a logical proof. So meaning that if you were to accept these 2 claims, you would have to accept this claim. And I'm going to give this probably false. I'm just going to rate this one honestly and a definitely true. If this is true, then it's true that there are no recent examples of going from prototype to breakthrough in a very short period of time. I don't think this is true. In fact, I think this is definitely false. So if I were to honestly evaluate this, I would say this argument is very weak, even though it's valid. But if someone really felt strongly about this, they put that there, then you can see that would impact the score of this claim. Now, more people would come by and vote, and the average of this would eventually get somewhere else, and then another tree of argument could be had about this claim. And those scores would filter up the tree to higher level arguments and claims so that people could quickly see how this analysis at this detail level affects the strength of arguments higher up the tree. What that shows is that it's very easy, if you think that the consensus is wrong, to continue the discussion. And as you get deeper and deeper in the discussion, the voting ends up playing a smaller and smaller role, and the logical argumentation in the tree below a node will end up defining the score that node gets. And what all this allows you to do is it allows you to create a tree where you see the strongest arguments first, where the system will sort the arguments so that people trying to evaluate and trying to understand an issue can start with the strongest arguments, and some of the spam that's further down maybe hasn't been fleshed out properly will be hidden from view until people take the time to flesh it out. So I hope that gives you an idea of what ponder.wiki is and how it can be used for groups of people to come together and really investigate an issue. One of the cool things about this system is that thousands of people can be using this at the same time. Subsequent videos will look at some of the more advanced features of ponder.wiki, and we'll also explore how this system tends to facilitate more productive conversations among either small groups of people, maybe just 2 people, or even potentially thousands of people.